You may have clicked this if you did click it, wondering why is this guy doing a review of a set that released 3 weeks ago? I'm just a completionist, and the fact that I haven't missed a single set in like the all years that I've been doing YouTube kind of makes me want to do this one regardless, even though the next one is coming out in just a couple days. But anyway, we're going to take a look at V-EB07, the Heroic Evolution. It has a lot of really good cards. It actually gave a nice shift in the meta, and I think it was the start of like the decks that were up to par to Bermuda or able to beat Bermuda, and I think that kind of continued, and now a lot of decks that released ever since Bermuda are just as good and never really like lost their kind of like, you know, shine in the meta, even with all the new sets releasing. So I think this is the first of which after Bermuda where you can really start seeing this. I actually like all three clans quite a lot, but before we talk about the clans, I need to mention that this is the set where Force 2, Axle 2, and Protect 2 do release. So these are the Type 2 gifts. Make sure you pick them up. You can wait for, you know, well, My Glorious Justice to release just in a couple days to actually buy the reprinted ones, because they're a little bit expensive now. It's about €1 to €2 per gift, which is a little bit pricey, so you know, keep that in mind. But anyway, we're gonna go through the three clans in order from my least to most favorite, but I actually like all three of them quite a lot. But anyway, I do still have an order, so we're gonna start with Kagero. We have two really good decks to come out of, well, two amazing, well, one really good deck, the other one is good but has to be built around it. I guess both have to, but whatever. Okay, just shut up, Chris, just do it. Okay, so VR for Kagero is the end. He's made his glorious return. Sadly not as great as the Great, but still very good. He has one skill that splits into two. At the end of the battle he attacked, activate one of the following effects, but you cannot activate the same effect in the same turn. So you can activate both of them, but not 1 times 2, basically. So, first things first, if your hand has 4 or less cards, you may counterblast 1, soul blast 1 to stand him, and he gets drive -1 until end of turn. So this is nice that you don't have to discard or anything, it's just counterblast 1, soul blast 1, and he restands, which is very good, but you do have to commit very hard. Some players don't even play draw triggers for this reason, so that they don't accidentally drive check a draw trigger so that they go up, you know, from the 4, and so that's very nice. This does have to be, you know, at the end of the battle, so it does mean that if you check the draw, you are kind of ruining it. So the second skill is, if your soul has an overlord in its name, you can discard 3 to stand him. He has drive -1 and 10k power in addition until end of turn. So this is kind of the skill you want to do first, because at least you get the 10k power, but you do have to discard 3. But by discarding 3, you do get down to 4 or less cards in hand, therefore being able to do both skills in one turn. One thing to keep in mind though is that obviously you can't do the second part unless it's turn 4, or you got really lucky with a soul charge, but there's not that much soul charging apart from like Doha Garan, I think. So that first skill you can do even if you go like on turn 3, but otherwise, like turn 4, you're able to do both skills, but keep in mind you have to be careful with your soul. I'm also doing this set breakdown. The other reason why I wanted to do it is because like I couldn't do it while I was in Japan because I was so busy, but I did play in the meta of this set and My Glorious Justice and the upcoming Aerial Steed Liberation in Japan, and so at the end I played against quite a lot. It's quite a popular deck, and some players legit ran into situations where they had to Soul Blast the Overlord under, or like legit Soul Blast everything to the point they had nothing, or they had to Soul Blast their Overlord, and so they'd have to be like top decking to get another the end just to be able to do anything the next turn. And so that was pretty, like, it felt like a pretty risky deck to play, not that stable, very like all or nothing, force 2 or else. This deck also really does like force 2 quite a lot, so I think it's good, but it's not as great as the Great. So also not as great as Blademaster Waterfall in my opinion, or maybe the same power level, but I think the end is definitely not the best Kagero deck, but definitely something that you can enjoy quite a lot. And I think it's still a good tournament pick, but if you're really like going for that cookie cutter best deck in the clan, I don't think this is it. Then I'm going to take a look at Blademaster. So our first G Grade 3 to come back into the V series is Kagero's Blademaster. So he has some accompanying cards as well as a token that we're going to take a look at. So I'll pull up the token immediately so you can see it. But first, Blademaster's skill is Continuous Vanguard Circle. If one has no rear guards, he gets plus 5k in a crit. So this works even if you go like on turn 3 to ride him. If you can get rid of your opponent's field with like Bar and Burnout, or not Burnout, Berserk Dragon, etc., then you can get an extra crit, which is definitely nice going first. And then his second skill is the part that makes him really unique, which is an act once per turn. If you have Wyvern Strike Doha and Wyvern Strike Garan on your rearguard circles, you can Soul Blast a Grade 3 and discard 2. Then you retire your opponent's entire board and call a Vision token to rearguard circle, and at the end of that turn, retire that token. Visions are Grade 3, 13k power, critical 1, and can Twin Drive. So you get 4 drive checks in a turn with a vision token, which is really, really nice. And so therefore, you do discard 2, but you're going to drive check 4, so it makes up for that. Only thing is you do have to Soul Blast a grade 3, meaning you can't do this on turn 3 unless you got lucky with a Garan Doha Soul Charge earlier. So I should look at those cards first, actually. So Wyvern Strike Doha and Garan. So first, Doha skill. When you place it from hand on rearguard circle, you may counterblast 1 to search your deck for a Garan, call to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. Then the second skill is, during the battle it attacked, if your opponent doesn't have any rearguards, then they cannot guard with normal units, so trigger units only, but that does include PG, so it's not the end of the world. But I mean, if you attack for just a 17k or like a 22, then they can't guard with triggers. I mean, they can't guard with normal units, which normally would be enough for like force matchups and stuff, and so they have to guard with triggers. One thing you should keep in mind though, this is a 9k power grade 2 in a Force clan, so it is slightly lower for such a nice skill, so do keep that in mind. However, we should take a look at Mr. Garan as well. So Garan's skill is continuous. During your turn, if your opponent has no rearguards, he gets plus 5k. So that makes him a 22k column together with Doha. Otherwise, he's like a 13k attacker. That's what I've used him sometimes with. And then the second skill is Rearguard Circle. When the attack is boosted, Wyvern Strike Doha hits. You can counterblast 1 to draw a card and Soul Charge 1. So that's what I mean by you can get lucky and Soul Charge a grade 3 early. And then that means that you can actually ride either Waterfall or the Blademaster on turn 3 and use their skills immediately, which is really devastating. It's kind of the same as Soul Charging a grade 3 in Messiahs, it's just that the Soul Charge is a little bit hard to get because this is an on hit instead of an on attack as it would be in Messiahs. So really good grade 3, really good accompanying grade 2 and 1. Honestly, I'm a really big fan of this deck. CanYouSayG has a really good article on this deck as well. He's an avid user of the deck in Standard. You can give it a read. If I forget to put it in the description, please leave a comment telling me to do that, because I definitely do forget sometimes to put some stuff that I mentioned in the videos into the actual description. So yeah, just saying that for safety reasons. Next, we do have a searcher for Blademaster, which is Shine Bardiche Dragon. When placed on Vanguard or Rearguard Circle, you may Soul Blast 1 to look at the top 7, reveal a Blademaster from among them, put into your hand, shuffle your deck, and he gets plus 5k until end of turn. At the start of when the set released, this card was played quite a lot because people were like, oh, I can just search Blademaster, it's pretty good, right? But then now people have completely switched to just like Blademaster Waterfall or Blademaster the Great, just because this card is good, but it's like, it doesn't necessarily do much on that turn that you ride him, whereas like a Blademaster can give you at least the crit pressure on the turn 3, whereas the Waterfall, like, okay, you ride it, but you still get to retire something, and I mean, it's like, do you value the retire or a possibility to Soul Blast 1 and maybe get a grade 3 more? Like, I think it comes down to that, and I think like this card doesn't do anything past that, whereas Waterfall will be doing stuff the turn after, and again if you high roll with the Garan Doha play. So that's another thing to consider. But overall, it's an interesting card. I think if you don't can't afford Waterfalls or you don't have Waterfalls, etc., then you can just play pure Blademaster with just Shine Bardiche. I think it's definitely fine. At the start of the format, when the set released, this definitely was played a lot, so I think it's worth to keep that in mind. Then we have Wyvern Strike Dekat. So this is a the end supporting card. This is actually the card that makes the end a very scary deck on turn 3. So act Rearguard Circle, you may counterblast 1, put him into your soul. Choose one of your Dragonic Overlord the end, and when your opponent would call from his or her hand to Guardian Circle during the battle that unit attacked this turn, they must call 2 at the same time, so it's just a battle door effect. This is nice because not only does it give it to your, like, to any the end, so you can also give it to your Rearguard Circle. This, like, on force to the end is really scary because most the end players just stack all triggers on the end because it's going to restand so many times, and so even 2 to passing it is scary even with those 2 cards. And the thing is, because they usually attack with like a 13k with just force 2, normally a 1 card would be enough to guard that, like just a 15k, you know, 2 to pass, whatever. But here it's like you do have to drop 2 cards, and that can be really devastating because if this is on turn 4 and they restand twice, that's 6 cards you have to drop for the end, and that's definitely very annoying. And so this card is literally what carries the end, in my opinion. When I was playing against the end in tournaments in Japan, it was this card that I was afraid of, not the end. So this card is really, really scary. It's honestly just, it can really devastate you and can definitely win games for the end, and so it's definitely something to watch out for. So I don't think there's any hidden secret to this card, apart from it being, again, 9k, because it's a very good card. But yeah, so definitely very scary. Next up is Red Dive Griffin. Who would have thought that this would be Waterfall's new best friend? So, auto Rearguard Circle once per turn. When your opponent's Guardian is placed during the battle, it boosted a Vanguard. You may Soul Blast 1 to choose one of those Guardians and retire it, and at the end of that battle, retire this unit. So keep in mind, this cannot retire PGs, because PGs give the effect to your Vanguard. They don't, retiring them doesn't actually do anything. But if your opponent places like a crit to guard with, or a heal to guard with especially, you just pop it and then they have to guard once again. So again, with Waterfall, they can only guard with triggers. So that's the thing. So if they place a 20k, you pop it, they have to start guarding all over again. So it's only once per turn, and it does retire itself at the end of that turn, but that's good because, at the end of the battle, but it's good because the guard power still stays. So he retires himself after the battle, so that's definitely super nice that he keeps the boosting power. But overall, he's a great card. Like I said, Waterfall's new best friend, just because he puts so much extra pressure on the Waterfall turn, like, it's unbelievable. This is way more effective than a Battle Door effect. I think this kind of like Retire Guardian effect is much better, just because with Waterfall, it's crazy. Next is Exile Dragon. We've seen some Blademaster Waterfall players play this recently. So once per turn, act Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, you make +1, Soul Blast 1 to retire one of your opponent's rearguards. Pretty simple skill. It's basically like a Berserk on grade 3. So it's nothing too crazy, apart from, not being on place, it's just an act. But then his second skill is, at the end of the battle, attack the Vanguard. If your opponent has no rearguards in the same column as this unit, you may return him to your hand. So it's not even an on-hit, it's literally, if you're able to pop this column of your opponent, then you can bounce him back to your hand. So it's pretty good, because every turn you're able to recycle him, and, if you need to drop something for a PG, then he's going to be there. PGs are still very important, because we need to use them against Bermuda. But apart from that, like, he seems like a pretty fair card. I didn't think it was that great when he released, but now, like, seeing people use him a bit more, I'm starting to see his value here and there. A card that saw a lot of use when this set first released in the Blademaster decks was Lava Blast Dragon. So at the end of the battle, it attacks the Vanguard. You can put a Fahim and a Nasser each on your rearguard circles to your soul to stand him, and he gets +15 until end of turn. So the kind of use for him is that you can attack with Vanguard first, or like if you're attacking with either with Vanguard or with like, a vision token, you can put like the Fahim or like the grade 2 like behind the vision token, doesn't really matter, and then like put the grade 1 behind the Lava Blast. And then you attack with your with your Vision Token and your Blademaster that both drive check, put a bunch of crits and whatever else like you drive check on the Lava Blast, swing with him, then use a skill to withstand him at the end of the battle, and then a swing with him again with all those triggers and stuff like that. So you're kind of playing like Nova Grappler almost, in a Kagero, so it's pretty interesting. And so I know some people at the start I think Kevixify used this card quite a bit when Blademaster first released, but I think now he kind of fell out of favor, but still an interesting card that I think is worth talking about. So I'll look at Fahim as well. Fahim is during your turn, if you have a grade 3 rearguard, he gets +10k power, so he works, very well with that card. And then the Nasser is when placed, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or higher, you can Soul Blast 1 to look at the top 7 cards and call up to 1 grade 3 from among them to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So this was also a nice card in Blademaster, just because you could actually search the Shine Bardiche, and then that would actually, like, you'd call the Shine Bardiche, Soul Blast 1, and look at the top 7 again to look for the Blademaster. And if not, then you called something else, or you called yourself the Lava Blast. So that's, if you can't afford waterfalls, like Lava Blast, Shine Bardiche, and like Nasser Fahim, that's a pretty interesting build as well, and I think you can definitely steal some wins at locals with that too. Next is a card that I'm a pretty big fan of, but I know that not a lot of people play it, which is Dragon Knight Zarina. So once per turn, when your opponent's rearguard is retired by your Vanguard's ability, you may Soul Blast 2 and call a grade 1 or less card from your drop zone to a rearguard circle in the same column as this unit. So this obviously works really nicely with a lot of our grade 3s. So Waterfall pops something, Blademaster obviously pops everything, and so because of that, he's pretty easy to use. Soul Blast 2 is a bit heavy because we Soul Blast for a lot of our effects. Like, we're Soul Blasting grade 3s for all of our grade 3s. We're Soul Blasting for things like the Berserk, and so that already uses up quite a lot. And the next common we're going to take a look at as well also Soul Blast, so it kind of comes down to that. But the thing that I like about him is that you can bring back stuff like Airmo and the Sable Dragon Unit with Zarina, and that's actually quite nice because you're popping your own Airmos and Zarinas just to be able to do this. And the thing is that the nice thing is, I'm pretty sure, I haven't checked this with judges, but if you pop something and you use Airmo to countercharge 1 and draw 1, and then on the same timing, I think you're still able to use Zarina to Soul Blast 2 and call that Airmo back. So I think that's possible, which is actually quite nice. So, I don't know, I'm a big fan of this card. He doesn't see much use right now, but I feel like maybe when we have more consistent soul charging, potentially, then he could get better in the future. But I think this card is good. Like, I think a lot of people are sleeping on it. I'm pretty sure it's an interesting and nice card, but it doesn't see much use because also Overlord has, like, no use for it as well. Now this is the grade 2 that CanYouSayG does emphasize quite a lot. I personally didn't see much use in him until I started actually testing him. I mean, I should probably say for context, my brother plays Blademaster Waterfall and I've been playing with his deck quite a bit just to learn it. And so I've been playing around with it, and so Dragon Knight Mukhtar is interesting because he's an act rearguard circle once per turn. You make Counterblast 2 and Soul Blast 1. You retire 2 of your opponent's rearguards and he gets plus 5k until end of turn. So this is good because at first I was like, Counterblast 2 is heavy as hell. But really, it's Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 0.5 per retire, which is technically less than what Berserk does, and this lets you really set up the Blademaster crit on turn 3 much easier because you're able to trade away 2 things immediately. This can pop like a double Kagero in your opponent's back row, and so that's really, really cool. So I think Mukhtar is actually a pretty cool card, and he gets the 5k, so he swings for, like, at least he swings on his own over the force number, and so I think that's quite cool. And then the last couple cards that I wanted to take a look at, they released some new stuff, like with like new guard powers, like a grade 2 with like 7k power, 15k shield, which is interesting, and then a grade 1 that has intercept instead of boost. So they're interesting, but I mean, it's just very unique. I've seen some people use the, I can't remember which one, I think it's the 7k grade 2 actually, so it's interesting I guess, but I don't know how I really feel about it. I guess it's just for the extra shield. It's kind of like Miracle Dandy I guess, but yeah, so kind of interesting. And then the last the last Kagero card is Wyvern Strike Membuas. When he boosts rearguard circle, if your opponent has no rearguards in the end of that battle, when your opponent would call from his or her hand to Guardian Circle, they must call 2 or more at the same time. So just the battle lore effect, but this is not as nice as the one, the Griffin, which retires your triggers, I mean your opponent's Guardians. I think it's a bit better, so that's quite cool. So last thing I should mention for Kagero, there's some builds with Blademaster and the DDD. So Dauntless Drive Dragon in Premium, where you can basically just like stride until you break ride with Blademaster over Dauntless, and then you're able to make a token, and then you get the restand on Blademaster, so you get 4 drive checks there, as well as the drive checks on the vision token. You play a bunch of stands, so it's kind of like infinite attacks with like force markers and stuff, so that's actually pretty cool because you're able to hit for big numbers, and so it's not that consistent, but I think it got some cheese wins here and there in some local tournaments, so if you feel like just having fun with a pretty fun build in Premium, I do recommend that as well. So that's it for Kagero, let's move on. Moving on, we're going to take a look at Link Joker. So this is the set where Link Joker really pushed into the meta, really became super consistent. I've played a lot against Messiahs, I've also played Messiahs, already did a pretty big video on it with Yellow Card Vanguard, and so the deck is really cool, it's really fun to play, really strong. I think overall just like one of the shining stars of Standard as well. So I think it's nice. In Japan I played a lot against it. There were a lot of variants. There's like the Brand variant, the Deleter variant, which in my opinion is the strongest. There's other kinds of variants, like there's a pure variant too. But I mean, there's a lot of different variants, and so it's a pretty cool deck, but I like it a lot. So let's go over the trump card, the baby boss, the Harmonix Messiah. So first skill, when it attacks, search your deck for up to 1 card, put it on rearguard circle as a locked card, and shuffle your deck. And there's your reminder text on locked cards if you didn't know what they do. So this is the return of Self-Lock in Vanguard. In Standard, that is, sorry. And so, good. It's like, even if you write it first on turn 3, you're able to search something. It's a +1. You can search the Blast Monk to be able to actually, you know, unlock and potentially... Sorry, the Burst Monk, not the Blast Monk, that's a different monk, to potentially draw an extra card for yourself, which is definitely nice. And so it's also free skill, costs absolutely nothing, which is very, very nice, and that makes writing into him pretty good. Obviously, you still want to write into the Deleter first, because that can push your opponent in this meta much harder, and so that's also part of the reason why we have to look at his second skill, because it's a turn 4 skill. So, Vanguard Circle once per turn, at the end of the battle attacked, if your soul has a grade 3 or greater card, you may counterblast 1 and discard a card from your hand. Choose any number of any fighter's locked cards, unlock them, draw the same number of cards, and 2 rearguards in your front row get plus 15k until end of turn. So, this says any fighter's locked cards. Maybe that's a hint that we'll get lock back in the future. That would be pretty nice. I feel like lock isn't that bad of a mechanic as people make it seem. I think it's overall pretty chill. But anyway, this skill is really good because it's multi-attacks to begin with, and a Force Clan, which is obviously very threatening. It's a power up of 15k, meaning it will go over damage triggers if they get something, which is also very good. It's only a discard 1 for what is usually going to be a draw 2 or 3 or even 4, and so it's a pretty good trade in my opinion. And the fact is that it's not even like a strict like turn 4. It's like if you have a grade 3 or greater in your soul, therefore if you soul charged it with the Blast Monk earlier, you're able to actually do it on turn 3, which some of my opponents did do in Japan. One of the times I lost to Messiah was when I bricked and had a G-assist on grade 0, but that's beside the point. But Messiah is very, very strong. Like, this card is really good, it carries its own weight. It is a turn 4 card, but it is super good regardless. Let's take a look at the next one, which is Lady Battler of the Gravity Well. I just noticed that her flavor text is just hey. So, I kind of slept on this card, or rather when we were doing the video with Yellow Card Vanguard, I just kind of didn't talk about it enough. In my opinion, this is a very good card, and I think you should play this, and I think like with my teammate when we were talking about like Link Joker builds and stuff like that, this is definitely a 4 in my opinion, just because of the multi-attack aspect and being able to produce more locked circles for you to draw even more with the harmonics with. So her skill is when she attacks on rearguard circle, you may Soul Blast 1 and discard a card. Then you look at the top card of your deck, put it on rearguard circle as a locked card, and draw 1. So very nice because it's a discard 1, draw 1, plus you also still get to +1 on your field by putting the top card on your field as a locked card. Obviously, you might mess up your board a little bit. You might have to call a grade 2 or a grade 3 to the back row. You might have to call a trigger instead of drive checking it, which is a bit sad. But you get to draw a card at the end, which is definitely nice. And so the discard 1 doesn't actually do that much to actually, you know, ruin your day. So I think it's a good card. It helps you multi-attack, and so it just puts more luck stuff on your board, which lets you do the harmonics turn more efficiently. Next up is Sunset Edge Dusk Blade. So, rearguard circle, when the attack it boosted hits a Vanguard, you make +1 to bind one of your opponent's rearguards face down, and if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you draw a card. Now, this guy used to be grade 2. I feel like his cheeks got much more cheeky once he downgraded, but this guy is okay. Like, I don't know, I feel like he's not really worth the triple rare slot just because it's like, it's an on hit on Vanguard where it specifically boosts. It has to counterblast 1 just to bind 1, and then if there's a condition that is fulfilled, you get to draw 1. Like, I feel like this really isn't worth that much, and like, the fact that it has to be on hit is just like, why is this a triple rare? I feel like it's one of the worst triple rares released recently. I know most players, like in Japan this was played at like 2 or 3 copies, or like sometimes even 4. I know in the West it's not seen as that big of a deal with this card, so it's not played as much, but it's interesting, but I don't think it's really worth to be played at that many copies. Next up is Claw of Occlusion, Ghastly Nail. So, this guy is a pretty big beater because his first skill gives him 5k for every locked card that you have during your turn. So Vanguard and Rearguard Circle skill, very nice. So even one locked card in a Force Circle gives him 28, so that's very cool. And then his second skill is when he attacks, you may Soul Blast 1 and put a card from your hand on your Rearguard Circle as a locked card, and if you do, draw a card. So this is literally just like, oh, put something on the board, draw 1. Again, a 1 for 1, no minuses, all good. And you can also ride into him first and then go into the Harmonics Messiah, and you're still setting up your board and, you know, not losing out on cards necessarily. So he's a good card in that aspect as well. Now for the High Roll King, or actually no, the High Roll Prince. The King is the other monk. So Blast Monk of the Thundering Foot has a really good skill, Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. When he attacks a Vanguard, you may counterblast 1 to bind one of your opponent's rearguards face down. If it was a grade 2 or greater, you soul charge 1. So if you manage to soul charge a grade 3, you can do Harmonics Messiah on turn 3. Very good. And so the fact that it's also a Vanguard Circle skill means you can do it from the very start. But if your opponent doesn't call anything on turn 2, well, then you're not going to be binding much. And you're also like not going to be binding grade 1s that often either. Sorry, I'm stretching, but I'm not being very like professional in my videos lately, but I kind of like this more. But anyway, so the only times you're gonna bind like grade 1s and stuff is if there's like a super pesky grade 1 in the back. Like, I can't even come up with one right now off the top of my head, but I mean there's plenty. Like, I guess Sierra, technically, if they don't have any melodies, but otherwise you'd be binding melodies and ruining Bermuda's day. But yeah, good card because it kills something on your board, which is annoying, and it potentially soul charges a grade 3, which makes your win con come faster. Next is Destiny Dealer, the Soul Charger, the Stride Fodder being retrained. So when you ride him, you look at the top card of your deck, that's an errata, and put it on your rearguard circle as a locked card. And then the second skill is basically the same thing except an act and a Soul Blast 1 instead. So that's pretty nice. The second skill you don't use as much. You mostly use him for that like on ride, call something, because it's a free +1, literally. No matter what it is, it's an extra card on your board for no cost whatsoever, so that's definitely nice. Second skill is nice in early turns, but I think like later on you might actually clog up your board and lose the game if you do clog it up, you know, inappropriately, or like not the way that you would want to, and so that can be a problem. Be careful when you set up your boards with him. Next up is Topological Dragon. We literally Yu-Gi-Oh out here. So this guy, not that fancy, but he gains a crit when he attacks if you retire 2, and he gets 5k in a crit. So until end of turn, doesn't really matter because the restand in this deck is a unlock, so he loses his skill. So it's kind of whatever, and retiring 2 rear guards is pretty heavy as well, so it's kind of like, why would you ever use this? So I don't really see much of a use for this guy. Also, he's Vanguard Circle, never mind, this is so bad, why am I even talking about this? Okay, here is the RNG King, Remarkable Burst Monk. When he's unlocked, you may counterblast 1, reveal the top card of your deck and put it into your hand. If it's a grade 3, then you can discard 2 cards from your hand and stand your Vanguard. So if you play like 10 or so grade 3s, you have a pretty high chance of actually getting this off. And so I know a lot of Messiah players, you know, they do get it off like in, let's say if they have like 7 or 6 Swiss rounds, then they might get it off like once or twice in a tournament, which I think is pretty good, you know, that's a pretty high percentage. And so yeah, he's a good card, honestly. I think he's really nice. Like, even if you don't do the restand, it's just like unlock counterblast 1 to draw 1, and so that's an extra draw, extra survivability for next turn, extra just everything really. And the counterblast 1 doesn't matter because you have one of the best unlockers in the game, and so, I mean not unlockers, one of the best counterchargers in the game, so definitely not something to worry about, honestly. This card is really, really, really good. Next up is Binodal Dragon. So this is a new dude. Act, you may soul boss 1 and retire him to draw a card. Yes, okay. I guess if you don't want a 10k, whatever, but I mean his second skill is the reason why you do that. When he's retired from rear guard circle during your turn, you may counterblast 1. Until end of turn, battle door effect to your Vanguard. So kind of nice that it's like a 1-for-1, but it's like counterblast 1, soul blast 1, just to like retire and draw and give battle door effect. So I feel like it only gives battle door effect to your Vanguard, which like usually only attacks once. And so, like, I guess it's nice because usually the Harmonix is attacking for 13, and so because of that, like, most players will just guard with a 15k for 2 to pass, and so this would actually make them guard a bit more, which I guess just makes them add a 10k for no pass, which I guess isn't that substantial, but yeah. But you don't have space in your grade 2, so never mind, whatever. Now, finally, this is the best countercharger, well, one of the best counterchargers, Calderon Wing. Act rearguard circle. If Harmonix Messiah is on your Vanguard or rearguard circle, if you have a locked card, you may soul blast 1 and lock this unit and countercharge 1. So costs us a soul blast, which like a lot of cards in this deck soul blast. So the blast monk, the blast monk is really important here. But he countercharges and self-locks. This is the only self-locker in the whole deck right now in Standard, and so that's really important to keep in mind. But because of that, like, this is really nice because you can self-lock like 2 of him, or like even 1 of him, honestly, and then like the rest you just lock with like whether it's like Harmonix or the Ghastly Nail or the Lady Battler. Like, you can set up a bunch of locks and then just go for the Harmonix and unlock a bunch and draw a bunch, and so it's definitely very nice. Calderon Wing is great. He's also 7k, so if you don't want to give damage to some annoying decks, like Kagero, really, like if you called something off the Destiny, or like if you called something as lock and you don't want to give them damage, like just swing with the 7k and then not letting them hit, or like not hitting so they don't get to use Berserk Dragon is also an option, so just something I wanted to point out. Next we have Deep Scorpius. When placed on Vanguard Circle, ouch, no force markers, you make almost 1 soul blast 1 to bind your opponent's rearguard to the highest grade and draw cards equal to that unit's grade. I don't know if it's worth having this instead of a force marker, not really, but I kind of forgot that he doesn't have a force marker, so whatever, oops, bye. Then we have Envelope Panther. When he attacks, if you have a lock card, you may soul blast 1, and this unit, add one of your Vanguards, gets plus 10k at the end of turn. This could be not bad as like a one-off that you could search with Harmonix, just because... No, you couldn't, because then it's already too late. Yeah, never mind. Well, god damn it, why? Like, this is nice because Harmonix always attacks for 13k because you give your forces to rearguards first, so you could like call this on the non-force one to still hit with a nice number, give the power to your Harmonix, but like you don't want to play more than one of this guy, so it's kind of inconsistent, so oh my god, it's just kind of sad, but interesting card, maybe one day, maybe one day. Spinodal Dragon. Act, Soul Blast 1, retire him, choose one of your opponent's rear guards and bind it face down, and then when he's retired, one of your Vanguards gets plus 5k until end of turn. So not even, doesn't even draw to compensate. So honestly, not that good. It's just a -1. Your grade 1s are already clogged, and especially because our next card is also very good. So this is Black Star of Increase Bale Rother. Very, very nice card. When your locked card is put, or when your card is unlocked, this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn. So not once per turn effect, so he's going to stack up that power nice and hard, and going to be a very threatening hitter. So I think he's a good card, honestly. Some players don't use him at all, just because like they feel confident in their numbers already to begin with, but this guy can become a huge beater. I guess it depends on your deck build. I think this in pure decks, this is a bit better, whereas in like the leader variants, it's not as good because like on the turn 3 you can't really use him, so that becomes a bit of a problem. So that's the last card for Link Joker. Link Joker is really good after this set, is going to stay good for quite a while in my opinion, just because this whole, like the whole Messiah deck is very, very consistent and very strong, and has a lot of really good cards to boot, and it's already the 3rd set of support that it has, so has a lot of stuff to choose from. So that's going to be it for Link Joker. Alright, after a break that probably was just a few seconds to you, but a few hours to me, we're going to take a look at Nova Grappler, which is my #1 hype from this set. Sadly, the cards in this set for Novas are like split between super amazing cards that made a deck like Beast Deities just becomes insanely good, and then not so good cards for a deck that's kind of a meme, but managed to slap me in the face in Japan when I wasn't expecting it. So we'll take a look at the VR first, which is for that deck. So this is Spinning Valiant for the hero deck. So continuous Vanguard circle, all units can only attack the Vanguard, so this includes both you and your opponent. So that's nice because they can attack your rear guards, which is the main strength of this deck, because it can set up some pretty annoying cards that we'll take a look at later. And so, but on the other hand, you do have to be ready to guard against stuff like Bermuda at all times, which is pretty threatening. And so that's something to keep in mind. Also, I mean, Axel Mirror Match is also pretty scary, but this is all due to one reason, which is that second skill, which is when it attacks, if your front row has 4 or more units, so you have to have 2 Axel circles, until end of your turn, this unit gets plus 10k, then you may counterblast 4, and when your opponent would call from his or her hand to Guardian Circle, they must call 3 or more at the same time. So this is nice because he will get that plus 10k regardless if you counterblast or not, so at least it's a big number. But then the counterblast 4 is super hefty, but nothing else really counterblasts in this deck. But smart opponents won't give you that 4 damage easily. However, what happened to me in my tournament game in Japan was I was playing DP, I was sitting on Die-Liner, my opponent had 3 damage because I was keeping him there, and then I used Die-Liner's skill, I got the extra crit, and I swing at my opponent. And he doesn't guard, knowing that if I check a crit, he's dead. But I guess in his mind he was like, well, I'm gonna die anyway if I don't get that 4 damage to kill him the next turn. So he no guards it, I don't get any triggers. Next turn, I had a 12 or 13 card hand. He goes counterblast 4, and I legit guarded with everything, and then next turn I started with 0 cards in hand. Like, they couldn't really do much, and then I lost because of that. So that's pretty threatening. So this card is interesting, but again, that first skill can be the kind of death of it as well, so it really depends on what you've got going in the rest of the 50 cards. Now for the real bad daddy, the actual card that should have been a VR in the set, which is Ultra Beast Deity Illuminal Dragon. So I already featured this in a combo video and my own deck profile where I came first in our shop challenge. His skill is Vanguard Circle once per turn. At the end of the battle that your rear guard's attack did not hit, you may counterblast 1 to stand that unit, and it gets plus 10k power to the turn, and it attacks your opponent's Vanguard immediately. So really good, because even a small attack like 13k from Grant will be able to restand and swing for 23 for just 1 counterblast, which is really, really good. And so honestly, just a great skill, because it means that, like, let me go over the second skill first. So Vanguard or Rearguard once per turn, when your other unit's attack hits, he gets plus 15k until end of turn. So this puts it into a situation where if it hits or doesn't hit, if he's on the Vanguard circle, you're gonna get something out of it. So that's the really nice part about this skill. This whole card is that it puts a lot of nice choices into both you and your opponent. And so it makes Standard a bit more interesting in my opinion, because it also just makes it a bit more complicated. Not everything is just whack face and win. Some stuff does come down to interesting choices like this card, and so I really love Illuminal design. I hope we get more cards like this. Honestly, this is like the peak of card design in Standard so far, in my opinion, because I just love cards like this where it's like, if it doesn't hit, something happens, if it hits, something happens. Like, it's just cool. It's interactivity, it makes both you and your opponent think about how you're going to proceed with your turn, and I think that's a really healthy thing to have in the game. So, Illuminal, mwah, beautiful. Next up is Kick Typhoon, the MVP in both Standard and Premium in terms of restanders. So first off, Vanguard Rearguard Circle when placed, if this unit is in Vanguard Circle or an Axle Circle, one of your units gets plus 5k until end of turn. So it's not him, any unit can get that 5k, so you can give it to your Azure Dragon to hit for 17 against like force numbers, you can give it to himself, you can give it to Grants, you can give it to a lot of different stuff, because that 5k is actually pretty valuable, so I think it's worth to consider that. And so like the 5k can actually make a big difference, especially if you put it on something like a Grants that's going to be restanding a lot. And then his second skill, which is the restanding skill, is Rearguard Circle once per turn. When he attacks, if all your front row rearguards are occupied, then you may counterblast 1 and stand one of your other rearguards. So good skill, it's a counterblast 1 to restand something, but do keep in mind you have to have all your front row rearguard circles occupied. So don't forget that, because that is a misplay. I mean, like, in the early playtesting of this deck, I was guilty of that misplay too, but that's why I repeat it again. It's a very, very important thing to remember. So, honestly, just an amazing card. He's good in Premium because he'll restand, like, your stuff to be even bigger. He's going to be an extra, you know, buster drive check, essentially. And in Standard, I mean, he's just going to be great. He's going to restand stuff like Grants, restand your Luminals that are huge on Rearguard Circle, restand your Brutal Jacks that are hitting for 19 or 24 if they're on an Axle too. So, just great. Just amazing card. Next up, we have Glad Grad. When he attacks Vanguard Circle, if you have 2 or more rearguards in rest, you may counterblast 1, soul blast 1, he gets plus 10k until end of turn. But if you have 5 or more resting rearguards, you can stand 2 of them in your front row. So basically, if you attack with him last while having, you know, a full board, I guess, or like at least 2 Axle circles and 2 normal front row circles, and then another rearguard in the back row, then you're able to stand 2 of them. So that's actually pretty okay. I guess for a budget deck, he's pretty cool. But I mean, for like Beast Deities, the grade 3 lineup is already packed with just Azure and Luminal. And then for Heroes, I mean, it's also relatively packed just with the Valiant, as well as one of the rares that we're going to take a look at, which is Girly Dolly. So he's interesting, but not right now. Like, I don't see many uses for him at the moment. Another Beast Deity that's actually not that good is Eclair Dragon. So when placed during your main phase, if you have a grade 3 Beast Deity Vanguard, you may counterblast 1 and discard a card. He gets plus 3k until end of turn and attacks your opponent's Vanguard. If it doesn't hit, he stands at the end of that battle. Now, the reason why this isn't good is because, first off, he only gains 3k, meaning if he is forced to attack, the opponent's force Vanguard doesn't even hit to begin with, so you counterblasted 1 and discarded 1. You don't even draw to compensate, like if it doesn't hit. That would maybe fix this card, but it doesn't. So 1, like, you already don't hit. So this is only good against Protect and Axle, and like we're in a force meta right now, and we're gonna stay in a force meta for a while because like Bermuda, Messiah, Kagero, like DP, and then Royals after that, Shadows after that, like so many force decks that are super popular that just keep coming and coming and coming, and then Spikes after that probably too if they get good cards. So this is not a good card. This is not worth playing whatsoever. You have so many other good grade 2s. It's just not worth playing this guy at all. However, the grade 1, the MVP, the best card of this whole deck is Glance Dragon. So, he's actually called Glance. I call him Grants from the Japanese name, which I think was much nicer. But so Glance Dragon is, I keep mentioning him, so I should go over the skill. Once per turn, rearguard circle when your other unit attacks. If you have a grade 3 Beast Deity Vanguard, you may soul blast 1 to stand him. So this dude will attack so many times. So on an Axle 2, attacks himself, hits for a 13, or if it doesn't hit, you stand him with a Luminal, bam, 23k attack. That's 2 attacks already thanks to a Luminal. Kick restands him, that's 3 attacks. He restands himself, already 4 attacks with 1 unit. So good. Only cost 1 Soul Blast as well to restand himself. Absolute mad lad. I love this card. He's just so good. Like, this is the best thing that Beast Deities could have gotten, and it's just like, I can't believe how good he is. And he actually, like, oh my god, I just noticed he has horns on his head. The design of this card is beautiful. Can you believe this is a grade 1? Look at how good he looks. Like, it's crazy. I love this guy. Oh my god, just wow. I wish they printed his sleeves or something. Like, it's just such a wonderful card. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, looking at the backup grade 3 for heroes is Girly Dolly. Vanguard and rearguard circle continuous. If there are 5 or more heroes on rearguard circles, all your guardians get shield plus 10k. So, you call 3 of her, and then your opponent can't attack them, so that you can only retire them. So, I mean, if you're playing as like Kagero and Narukami, then oops, kind of screwed. Or even Shadows, you know, stuff like that. But, like, then if it's any other matchup that doesn't retire, this is pretty good because even your 5k Guardian is like a 25 or a 15 or a 35 depending on how many girly dollies you have. But so she's quite good just because like you can put down a lot of them and not worry about them getting attacked because of Spinning Valiant's skills. So she's pretty good. Like honestly, this was one of the reasons why I struggled against heroes in that one time I played against them in a tournament. So pretty interesting. I'm glad I played against them once because I can actually say things about the deck instead of just going like, oh, der bad deck, you know. Like there's actually like some merit to it, let's be honest. Next we have Savannah Wild. When placed, Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, you may column +1, Soul Blast 2. Retire all your opponent's rearguards in the same column as this unit. If one or less units were retired, he gets plus 15k until the end of turn. A retire in Novas is appreciated, but I'm not sure if it's appreciated on a grade 3. Also, Soul Blast 2 is a bit hefty, because we're still Soul Blasting for some cards, like Glance, and so yeah, I don't know if this is really worth it. Maybe in Heroes because he's a War Beast / hero, so I guess he's kind of nice for that. And you're not like, but it takes away from your counterblast for Spinning Valiant, so nah, never mind. It's not worth it. Then Stylish Hustler. This dude literally is a JoJo character or a like Joe Bro or you know like he's great. So when your other rearguard is retired by the ability of your opponent's card, you may Soul Blast 1, put one of those cards into your hand. So he is a hero, meaning that if you are playing heroes and your opponent retires something, you know, he can't attack, but he can retire something, you can still Soul Blast 1 to bounce them back. It's not a counterblast, so the hero deck doesn't even mind that much, so it's actually quite nice for that reason. But other than that, this is good in any Nova Grappler deck. It's not limited to heroes. Like, this is played as a 4-of in Beast Deities because of, like, matchups like Kagero, where you can actually bounce back important stuff like your Glance, bounce back, you know, your kicks, etc. So it's super, super nice for that reason. His second skill is also not too shabby. When he attacks, he gets plus 3k until end of turn for until end of that battle, sorry, for each card in your damage zone. Even on 1, it's a 12k attacker. On 2, 15. When you have 5 damage, he gets plus 15, 24, 29 on an Exil. That's big. That hits for, like, that asks for a 20k shield even against Force, so that's very, very good. And so he's a really, really good card. Great attacker. Like, very much recommend to use him in every Nova deck in Standard. Maybe not so much in Premium, but, like, honestly, in Standard, this guy is a wonderful dude. Honestly, beautiful. Next up is Spin Kid, the other Beyblade character. So, when ridden from a grade 0, reveal a Spinning Valiant from your hand, so that's the VR, and deal 1 damage to you and your opponent's Vanguard. So, you each take 1 damage. I mean, that's supposed to be nice, but, like, honestly, it's not that great. It's good for Spinning Valiant to, like, set up, or, like, if your opponent's, like, damage denying you. But the thing is, this is only a Vanguard Circle skill, so it's, like, after that 1 turn, you can't even use this. Like, it'd be nice if it was Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, or, like, just when placed, that's it. You don't have to ride him from a grade 0. I don't know, maybe they're afraid of like Spinning Valiant being too good, but I feel like if they would have made this skill a bit better, they would have actually made the card much better, the whole deck much better, as a matter of fact. Next, Drill the Duel, the drill that will pierce a fish, actually. So, this guy's skill is when he boosts, you can discard a card from your hand until the end of turn when your opponent would call from their hand to Guardian Circle for the battle. The unit that this unit boosted attacked, they must call 2 or more at the same time. So basically it gives the battle door effect to the unit that it boosted. So it doesn't have to be boosting after this battle in order for the battle door effect to take place. So you boosted it once, and that battle door effect stays for the whole turn, no matter how many times that unit restands. So let's say you give it to something that you'll restand with Kick, and Azure, that means that the battle door effect will happen 3 times that turn. So for something that only costs a discard, this is actually quite huge, because when your opponent's on 4 damage, and you stack a crit on something, and then restand them twice, this becomes massive, because they have to guard that attack with a crit 3 times with 2 cards each time. So even in Beast Deities, this is huge. Some people don't like this card and they don't play it. I personally like to play it as a 2-of. I think it's not something you need to play more than that, because it's very, very situational. But playing as a 1-of, you won't see it that much. Playing it as a 2-of, at least you'll be able to draw into it eventually, because you're drawing with your Azure Dragon, you're drawing with the Exil 2, you're drawing with the Scarlet Bird and stuff like that. So you're able to see it eventually if you run it as a 2-of, but I think it's not worth to run it as more than that. So really nice skill just because of that potential finishing power, and so I personally like it a lot. Some more heroes. We have Warrior of Chakram. When your Vanguard is attacked on rearguard circle, give me Soul Blast 1, and he gets plus 5k shield until end of turn for each card in your damage zone. So he can be pretty huge. Only thing is that he's a rearguard circle skill, so you basically like have to Soul Blast to give him the shield and then intercept, which is interesting, but I mean it'd be nicer if that was a Guardian Circle skill, just like when you place him on Guardian Circle. Maybe this has been errata. I don't think so though. I feel like this is the actual correct skill. Pretty big shame because it's a really nice artwork, but the skill is not that good. Just another Beyblade guy, so pretty sad. Next up we have Vernal Cracker. When he attacks in rearguard circle, this unit gets plus 3 until end of turn for each of your other rearguards. Sorry, end of that battle. I keep saying turn, but this is okay. It can potentially be quite big, but it's a grade 1. So even then, like, if you have 5, he gets plus 15, 23, hits magic numbers. I guess it's something. Oh no, sorry, it is a grade 2 with, there's just 8k power. That's why my brain was like, oh, it's a grade 1. Sorry. But thing is, your grade 2 slot is very, very cramped. Like, otherwise you'd have to cut something like Stylish Hustler for this, which I don't think is quite worth it. So, interesting card, but not really worth to make the cut. Next we have Farmed Gaius. This is one of those new grade 2s with 3k power, so on an Axel circle this will be, Axel 1 that is, will be 13k, but in compensation he has 2 base crit. That's the thing. So the special thing is that this hits for a big number, and if you do restand him on an Axel 1, like in a different kind of build I guess, he would be pretty damn cool, so interesting for that reason. And then there's Dividing Road, which is a grade 1 with 9k power, so just your grade 1 with extra power. I guess it's nice. And the final card, which is a hero for Novas, is Smash Masher. Rearguard circle, when he attacks you in Calmas 1, he gets plus 5k until end of battle for each card in your damage zone. So basically the same thing as Stylish Hustler, but constant counterblast, aka oops, not very good. And then his second skill is at the end of your turn. If you have a grade 3 hero Vanguard, you can be put into your soul to countercharge 1. So even if you don't use that first skill, he's a countercharger, meaning you can actually afford to use some counterblast here and there, and then countercharge it and still be able to use the Spinning Valiant next turn, for example, if you didn't have 4 counterblasts on that turn. So pretty cool. And even if you did use Spinning Valiant and you didn't manage to win that turn, you can still countercharge 1 to have something for next turn if you need it. So pretty nice card, but that's gonna be it for this set. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm so sorry about how late it is. Like I was planning to pre-record it before Japan, but then like I still have so many videos of pre-recorded before Japan that I haven't even gotten to edit yet. So I just didn't have time to get to it. So now that I'm back in Europe for a little bit, I wanted to get it out at least before V-EB08, yeah, 8, sorry. So I'm still gonna try to get that set breakdown out on time as well. So we're not actually that far behind for too long. But yeah, like it's been a bit of a mess with all these sets. The release schedule has been also like, the sets have been releasing just really fast. It's like every 3 weeks or so right now, and that's a bit hectic, I'd like to say, especially if you play a lot of these clans like I do. Like it's literally like all my clans getting back to back to back to back support. So it's a little bit hectic for my wallet and for my upload schedule, so that's just something that I thought I'd mention. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys very soon for the upcoming V-EB08 set breakdown, so do look forward to that. So that's gonna be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.